Extending this idea, I propose that plasma exists across a spectrum of densities and scales, including a finer, subtler plasma that may not yet be directly measurable, but nevertheless interfaces with biological and electromagnetic systems. In the past, this has been called ether, but has been incorrectly disproved by the Michelson-Morley experiment, which deserves a paper within itself. I talk about that more in my book. It perturbs me. In this framework, plasma functions not merely as ionized matter in our physical reality, but as a responsive medium in a multidimensional existence that our consciousness exists in, through which organization, perception, and lived reality emerge, suggesting a lawful bridge between physical plasma and consciousness itself. I kind of call this multidimensional plasma the vehicle for consciousness or for information, which is just to me imprinted consciousness. It's kind of like consciousness imprints on plasma and it becomes this information, right? This fourth dimensional information that is always information based on our consciousnesses imprinting our beliefs and what we think to be true. And that literally creates what I think is space-time and the laws of our universe. And it's completely changeable, which is why when our beliefs change, our realities freaking change. And please tell me I'm wrong. How is that provable? I don't know. Besides the fact that it happens to literally everyone who heals and changes their beliefs and goes on to live successful lives. Just saying. That in a laboratory. I also love science and laboratories though. I could be a brat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. So I'll get into a little bit more about the scientific plasma stuff and then we'll have some fun. Well, or we won't because I might not have enough time. Well, let's just rush through and we'll see. So yeah, I'm going to skip through. I wrote a lot about electromagnetism and plasma, but basically all you need to know is electromagnetic fields shape plasma. And they claim that they don't shape plasma at macroscopic levels, like huge levels, but they actually do. And Hannes Alphen said that. And just look up the plasma universe if you're more interested in that or arguing with me about that. But basically, what I posit through that is that, hold on, let me look at my paper. I'm just buzzing through, building on this. Oh, okay. Okay, in contemporary physics, gravity is typically understood as the dominant organizing force at cosmological scales of plasma, while electromagnetic effects are assumed to be averaged out. Plasma physics, however, complicates this separation because plasmas are conductive and support long-range currents. Electromagnetic fields do not cancel in the same way they do in neutral matter, allowing coherent structures to persist across vast distances. Building on this, I propose that a collective electromagnetic coherence, when mediated through plasma, may contribute indirectly to space-time organization, with gravity emerging as a large-scale expression of a deeper field. So I think gravity is emergent. While speculative, this perspective aligns with the growing interest in emergent gravity models, which there are, and positions plasma as the intermediary between electromagnetic activity and space-time structure. So, why this is so interesting to me is at smaller scales within the human body, the heart generates the strongest measurable electromagnetic field, far exceeding the brain. The heart's electrical activity produces a coherent electromagnetic signal that propagates through the body and beyond it. States of emotional and physiological coherence measurably alter this field, changing its stability and rhythmic structure. And because the subconscious generates the body's most persistent electromagnetic rhythms, it is through this inner landscape that we most strongly communicate with and influence plasma, long before conscious thought intervenes. From a scientific standpoint, this establishes that the human organism is an active electromagnetic system embedded within a larger electromagnetic environment. So a lot of you maybe know about the electric universe. So this is very parallel and combined with that. So the electric universe is basically in our third dimension, a material reality, electromagnetic fields, shape everything, right? So I kind of say plasma is what shapes these, what did I write here? So electromagnetic, you can think of it as like this 3D realm, and I talk about the organizing layer, which is more this like 4D, 5D plasma, right? So,
got it.
but they're kind of synonymous with each other. They're very, anyway, I'm not like disproving the electromagnetic theory,
Right.
electric universe theory. I'm actually building on it. So here is where a bridge can be formed between established plasma physics and a broader hypothesis. If plasma is a medium that responds to electromagnetic coherence, and if biological systems generate structured electromagnetic fields, then interaction between life and plasma is not conceptually forbidden by physics. It is an open question of scale, coupling, and sensitivity. And by coupling, I just mean how strongly and through what pathway the body's electromagnetic patterns kind of grab onto this plasma medium and make measurable change and vice versa. That's something to look into. Maybe that we could test. This opens the door to exploring whether plasma, beyond its visible manifestations, may exist in finer, subtler forms that are not yet directly measurable, but still interact with electromagnetic and biological systems in a deeper way. And with my proposition that alongside the visible plasma composing stars in space, there exists a finer, more subtle plasma that makes up the majority of what we currently describe as invisible matter. It shows up as the effects of dark matter and dark energy, which we currently still do not know what these phenomena actually consist of. This multidimensional plasma would not contradict known physics. It would simply extend it and expand it, operating at scales or dimensions not fully accessible yet to our instruments. In this framework, plasma is not only a physical state of matter, but a relational medium capable of interacting with organized electromagnetic systems, such as living beings, through coherence, resonance, and feedback. Why this is so cool, and Jay Alfred talked about this in his book, I think The Invisible Bodies, about dark plasma and dark electromagnetism and plasma beings. Basically, this opens up the fact that there can be life that are electromagnetic systems that don't breathe. And I talk about this in my book in a chapter called The New Alive. Like some of these aliens, they might be electromagnetic. These beings of consciousness, like when we die, we still go on to be these electromagnetic life forms that just don't breathe in frickin' oxygen, nitrogen, or whatever. So we need to basically expand science into a more holistic science, a new science, which I will talk about more in the future. And bring psychology back into it as well, in mythology. So with the limits of current tools and science observation and potentially human perception as it is now, there may be ways to test such effects by observing patterns and systems and whether a new gestalt appears rather than direct measurements. And a gestalt is basically this third thing. So like picture a mother and a father and a child. The child is the gestalt, where they have qualities of the mother and father, but then they have its own new emergent quality that neither the mother or the father has. So that is a gestalt, something that has the quality that the other two didn't have that made it, which feels impossible and opens the possibility of that there's mystery and novelty and free will. That's what I think. So the key evidence would not be a new particle, but a change in how plasma organized systems behave as wholes. Whether novel patterns, correlations, or functional gestalts arise that cannot be predicted from standard plasma equations alone. If consistent, repeatable patterns of emergence, ordering, or coupling appear across different contexts, particularly those involving biological, cognitive, or informational systems, this would suggest that plasma is participating in a broader organizing role than currently described by plasma physics, even if the underlying mechanism remains partially inaccessible to direct measurement. Yeah, I was going to talk about crystals, but I'll talk about them another time. Quasi-crystals and fivefold symmetry. There is a cool thing there, but we're not going to talk about it because I don't have enough time. At topological edges, hinges, and phase boundaries, physics repeatedly encounters regimes where local reductionist descriptions fail to fully account for observed behavior. While the underlying laws remain valid, they are no longer sufficient to explain how new coherent structures arise at these interfaces. You know what? Actually, we'll talk about that. So, what do I want to say here? kind of want to talk about like liminal spaces. Okay, I'll finish my paragraph and then I'll explain. So I suggest that these boundary regions act as access points to a deeper organizing domain, what I call four-dimensional plasma, as an intermediate layer of relational organization that mediates between measurable matter and higher order structure. In this view, topology marks where the organizing plasma becomes legible within space-time, within our reality. For reference, throughout this paper, dimensional language refers to modes of organization and perspective rather than spatial dimensions in a mathematical sense. When I talk about 3D, 4D, 5D, they're just simply perspectives of our consciousness, but they have relation to math as well. Okay, so topology, I don't know if I want to go into this. I can go into this another time. But okay, basically there are topology examples if you know science. So there's magnetic recombination, which is common in dusty complex plasmas. There's also vortex rings or smoke rings and knots and braids. There are also cell membranes or boundaries in biology. All of these things are basically liminal spaces, and in edge and hinge physics, they're something where the laws of physics, I guess, would break down. It is literally the same thing as when you're in grief, bringing grief back around now, and you're in this liminal space that creates transformation, where something mysterious, fourth dimensional, comes in and kind of transmutes you. And this literally happens in science. Like, think about a smoke ring if we're all ex-smokers like I am, you blow a smoke ring, it's like smoke's coming from your mouth and actualizing into a formed ring, but it came from somewhere. Was not just a ring to begin with. It is, showing that it came from something else, right? Because that came from like inside my body and then all of a sudden became a physical smoke ring. But yeah, there's going to be a lot with like knots in the future as well. How those show up, and those are kind of more fourth dimensional. You can actually, knots that show up, I think in the 3D, you can only untie in the 4D, which is also interesting. And I think connects with the goddess Inanna, the goddess Inanna, and there's a story about her descent to hell. And it's kind of like this healing story for women. And it's very raw and interesting. And she symbolizes the knot, and these knots in the third dimension and how they can only be untied in the fourth dimension. That's the same thing as like healing your inner trauma. I know that was a lot there, but it's true. So yeah, topology is really just, instead of constraining behavior, it's a visible trace of deeper orders, like geometric access points to a higher dimension, to a fourth dimension. So anyway, hope that made sense to everyone. And I'm going to finish this soon. So I refer to this intermediary medium as fourth dimensional plasma, not as a metaphor, but as an extension of plasma's defining physical behavior. In physics, plasma is distinguished from other states of matter, not by composition, but its collective field dynamics. Long-range electromagnetic coupling, sensitivity to coherence, the capacity for self-organization across scales. These properties make plasma uniquely responsive to patterns, structure, and relational conditions, rather than fixed material form. And I propose that what is traditionally described as subtle, or the imaginal medium, exhibits the same organizing principles, operating at a finer scale and lower energetic density than visible plasma. For this reason, the term plasma is retained rather than replaced by another word, why I call it plasma, which means to mold in Greek, in Old Greece, however I say it. The dimensional qualifier does not denote an additional spatial dimension, but a mode of organization in which plasma-like relational dynamics dominate over particulate or mechanical descriptions. I'll read one more because this is where it gets exciting. In this view, material reality emerges through a cascade of plasma states. Consciousness interfaces with the finer plasma, which organizes into denser plasma forms, eventually expressing as gas, liquid, and finally solid matter. Reality is not imposed upon us, but co-created through relationship as a continuous exchange between consciousness and the plasma medium, which is what I call plasma consciousness synergy at many different scales. That gives form to experience, or the gestalt. Just as plasma self-organizes under electromagnetic influence, lived experience may self-organize through coherent interaction between consciousness and this finer plasma field. You know what? I'm going to read one more. Learning about plasma, then, is not only about understanding stars or laboratory experiments, but also about learning about how our dance partner in reality creation operates. It's the bringing back of the goddess. Thinking we are operating as independent active consciousness is like a fish swimming with no ocean. It also represents an interesting parallel to how the receptive and supportive feminine archetype has been suppressed and demonized and misunderstood throughout many religions and traditions over time. And for some reason, fear and unnatural suppression has been linked and projected onto plasma's immediately disprovable but experiential qualities. I believe that this is in tandem with the inability to sit in paradox, complexity, face ourselves, the experience of self, and the unknown that most, not only scientists, but humans deploy great discomfort with. And this is actually 13 pages, and I only read 3. So, and I don't want to read the whole thing because it's obviously being published, and I don't want to get in troubles. But yeah, basically, I write a whole book about this called A New Force, about plasma, consciousness, and the new human potential, and why we're meant to actually learn to work with this plasma, with our consciousness in these finer realms to live an amazing reality. That's our new human potential. It's living as the multidimensional self and living a more magical, connected, loving life. Who does not want that? Who wants the power within them and doesn't need anything outside of them? But you can use things outside of you, but you don't need it. No one can buy that. No one can put a price tag on that. And knowing your power and remembering who you are. And the more you heal, the more you remember who you really are, your multidimensional self, your triple goddess self. Or, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is the triple God. But really, it's just the triple frickin' self. Man or women, neither. It's all. It's the rainbow serpent back from the Dreamtime Aboriginal Australia. But now it is able to come through us in a more conscious way. Hopefully that made sense to some of you who like mythology. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to end it there today. And I'm scared my camera's going to shut off too. Wait, let me look how much battery it has. How do I know? 55%. Oh, it won't shut off. Okay, well then I could talk a little bit more. So, yeah, I wrote this paper and I'm into this stuff because I just feel like, and I don't want to go off in too many tangents, but a lot of us are going the wrong way with technology, with AI, with quantum physics. All of those things are amazing. I love all those things. I use all those things. But we have to dive into the conscious part of everything. We have to expand our consciousness to be able to create a better world. Technology is not going to do that from us. We're just externalizing our own traumas and control on technology. What will do that first is learning the original technology of our consciousness. It is learning about quintessence and this plasma and a more holistic science and diving into our trauma and emotions and feelings. And once we can become better vessels, we're going to channel better ideas. Duh. And then create more supportive technologies, which I'll go into in a future episode. I write about it in my book a little, that have to do with like organic matter and warm, dense matter and soft matter and limestone and water and light and plasma and systems and sustainability, rather than like things that constrict our consciousness. And these things will not be conscious themselves. I don't care. One says, I don't believe AI is going to be conscious ever in the way we are with intuition, where it's like channeling a higher self like a human does. I don't. I think if anything, it's just a mirror to us. So if we're channeling through that, that might be something, but it's really within us. Like we are the original technology. We have it all in here. And I believe that there'll be more technologies that are supportive to expanding consciousness, that are more like resonance, vibrational, putting you in the right state, if that makes sense. And then, because everything's vibration and resonance and energy, right? So, eventually curing cancer will be more of an energetic vibrational thing than like a machine. But maybe like a supportive machine can create a better environment to become more coherent and resonant so we don't have those problems. I don't know. Just a thought. Let me see if I want to bring up anything else cool in this paper. Well, I kind of, if you guys want to hear more, actually on Spotify, you can comment on this, and on YouTube, you can too. Comment, because I can talk more in my paper. I go into Neoplatonism. I talk about the aura, and this guy, Frank Washington Very. I talk more about the third, fourth, and fifth dimension. I talk about the noose, Henry Corbin, creative imagination. I talk about magic. I even talk about Salvador Dali. It's a fun little paper. It's a fun big paper that's 13 pages. I'm hungry. I'm going to end this. So, okay, my ending message to everyone, going back around to grief and liminal spaces and what all of this has to do with you. We all lose people in life, whether we even create a utopia ever, and I do believe we can create something like a utopia that still has contrast, though. It's not perfect. Like, we're all humans who make mistakes. Like, we're meant to have all the emotions, and I don't think an actual utopia is possible, like, with that. But as far as something with contrast, having more love in it and feeling more like utopian or solar punk, or what I call star punk, where we, like, know who the heck we are. We know we're our higher selves having a human experience and bringing heaven into earth, and supposed to eat yummy chocolate cake and, make mistakes and create things out of reality. Knowing all of that, we're still going to die from our human bodies. We're still going to lose people. Someone can fall in love with someone else and leave us, and it's still an act of love, right? It's not an act of hate towards us. We just feel that, obviously. I get that, trust me. But with that said, these liminal spaces, these contrasts, these horrible emotions, all of us experience at times from loss, from grief. Those are the spaces where this, like, essence comes into us, where sometimes our higher self comes into us. Sometimes we have awakenings, experiences, and it rips us open and expands us. And we're not meant to achieve enlightenment here. We're meant to expand our gravitational field, expand our electromagnetic field, expand our senses. We're developing new sensory experiences. We're starting to have more visuals of things. I know this is happening to you because it's happening to me. We're going to have new perceptions with things we're seeing, with things we're smelling and tasting, and we're meant to have new senses and these almost new magical abilities that are latent in all of us, and they're coming out of us right now. Jean Houston talked about it in the Human Potential Movement a lot, and I talk about it in the last chapter of my book about the divine child, the age of Aquarius, and it's just really the age of neutrality, and we're making meaning out of everything because we're the co-creators. So yeah, I love you guys so much. Let me see if I have a little ending script here because I'm still getting used to my new format. Thank you, Spectre Vision, for having me on your network. Joined it on episode 3 with them. Love them so much. They're so cool, and they're helping me, with my branding and making this more legit. Obviously, that's why I got my camera now, because they, are pushing me to be a little more professional, which I was pushing back on, but I like the camera. I love my camera. I take photos with it as well. Yeah, basically follow, share with someone, remember your magic, remember you are never alone. You got your higher self with you. You got this God energy with you, creation energy. You got all of us here with you who we're all experiencing these human emotions together. Maybe just open a little bit to that and see what you can experiment with. We say we're these lone wolves, but we want connection and harmony. And all of us deserve that. And go out there and get it. It's not, it will come to you, but go out there and experience life, because that's how you're going to find the people meant for you. You can check out my magic classes. It is on my Stan store, stan.store/Dana Kippel. It is also my Instagram in the link in the bio at dana.thealien, my TikTok at Dana Kippel, and my YouTube at Plasma Intelligence, or just, search Dana Kippel. And yeah, you can get my book, A New Force, on there as well, or at danakippel.com. And yeah, I have all the links to Amazon on there. Oh, yeah. Follow and share the podcast. I guess that's the most important, since I'm on the podcast right now. But I think, if you like this, you'll probably love my magic classes. My neck hurts. I want lunch. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to Heart Snacks. Have a beautiful day in life. And just, yeah, remember that you are magic. You are so powerful. And I love you so much. Okay. Bye.
Huh.